Imagine waking up one day with vivid memories of a life you've never lived, names, places, and even the cause of your death, so clear and real, yet completely detached from your current existence. Now imagine a scientist, a rigorous academic, dedicating his entire career to investigating thousands of such cases worldwide. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a highly respected psychiatrist and professor at the University of Virginia, spent over 40 years collecting evidence suggesting that consciousness might survive death. His work, often dismissed as too controversial for mainstream science, remains some of the most compelling research into reincarnation, near-death experiences, and the possibility of life beyond our physical bodies. Could he have found proof that we live more than once? Or was he merely fooled by suggestible minds and cultural myths? This article dives into the incredible life of Ian Stevenson, his groundbreaking research, and the mysteries he uncovered, mysteries that still challenge the boundaries of science and spirituality today. The Man Who Chased the Soul, The Life of Ian Stevenson, 1918 to 2007. Ian Stevenson was no ordinary scientist. Born in 1918 in Montreal, Canada, he grew up with a deep fascination for the unknown. From an early age, he questioned reality, seeking answers beyond the material world. After studying medicine at McGill University, he specialized in psychiatry and became a distinguished academic, eventually leading the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia. But something kept pulling him toward the mysteries of consciousness. Unlike most of his peers, who dismissed paranormal phenomena as mere hallucinations or wishful thinking, Stevenson was willing to investigate. His curiosity led him to a field few scientists dared to explore, the study of reincarnation and past life memories. The turning point came in the 1950s when he came across cases of children who spontaneously recalled details of past lives, names, places, and events they could not have possibly known. Intrigued, he began documenting these accounts, searching for patterns, and applying rigorous scientific methods to analyze their authenticity. He left behind a promising career in mainstream psychiatry to embark on a lifelong journey across the globe. His mission? To gather evidence that could challenge the prevailing scientific view that consciousness ceases to exist after death. The Science of Reincarnation, Stevenson's groundbreaking research. Most people associate reincarnation with religious beliefs, particularly in Hinduism and Buddhism, but Stevenson approached it differently. He treated past life memories as psychological phenomena that could be studied objectively. His research spanned more than 40 years, covering thousands of cases across multiple cultures. His method was meticulous. He would interview children who claimed to remember past lives. He cross-checked their statements with historical records. He searched for physical evidence, such as birthmarks or scars corresponding to injuries from the alleged past life. He ruled out fraud, coaching, or wishful thinking by ensuring that families had no prior contact with one another. The results were astonishing. In many cases, children's statements matched real-life historical events, even when they belonged to different ethnic or religious groups. Some children exhibited strong emotional responses when visiting places linked to their supposed past lives. Others displayed unusual phobias or behaviors that seemed to be carried over from a previous existence. One of his most famous books, 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, published in 1966, presented some of the most compelling evidence. It documented cases from India, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, Turkey, and beyond, challenging the belief that past life memories were simply cultural artifacts. One of his strangest cases, the boy who remembered his murder. Among Stevenson's many cases, one stands out as particularly chilling. A young boy in India, at the age of 3, began speaking about his past life as a man who had been murdered. He claimed to remember his killer's name, the location of his home, and even the exact details of his death. His parents, initially skeptical, decided to investigate. To their shock, they found that a man matching the description had indeed been killed in the way their son described. Even more disturbingly, the boy had a birthmark on his forehead that corresponded to the fatal wound of the deceased man. This case was just one of many where Stevenson found physical evidence, birthmarks and scars that seemed to correspond to past life injuries. He published these findings in his monumental work, Reincarnation and Biology, a contribution to the etiology of birthmarks and birth defects, which included over 200 cases of children bearing marks corresponding to wounds from previous lives. 20 cases, Suggestive of Reincarnation, 1966, the book that shook the scientific world. This was Stevenson's first major publication on reincarnation and remains one of his most widely referenced works. The book presents 20 carefully selected cases of children who reported past life memories. These cases were chosen because they showed strong evidence, such as verified past life memories with specific details about names, locations, and events, children who had never met the families of their alleged previous identities, but still knew details about them, emotional reactions when visiting places connected to their supposed past lives, physical marks or deformities that matched wounds or injuries from their past life accounts. First case, a boy in Sri Lanka remembered being a tea merchant who had died in a car accident. He knew details about his previous family, their business, and even where he had hidden money, information later confirmed by his former relatives. Second case, Swarnlata Mishra, an Indian girl, remembered being Bia Pathak from a distant city. She recognized members of Bia's family, sang regional songs she couldn't have learned otherwise, and accurately described hidden family jewelry. Third case, Titu Singh, a boy from India, remembered being a shop owner named Suresh Verma who was shot in the head. He identified his past life home, family, and murderer. He even had a birthmark on his forehead, corresponding exactly to the bullet wound that killed Verma. Cases of the Reincarnation Type, 4 volumes, 1975 to 1983, expanding the research across cultures. This multi-volume work built upon 20 cases, suggestive of reincarnation, expanding the study to include cases from different cultural backgrounds. Stevenson wanted to see if past life memories were influenced by religion, beliefs, or geography. His findings revealed that children in both Western and Eastern cultures reported past life memories, challenging the idea that reincarnation was only a belief-driven phenomenon. Some cases involved children recalling lives in a different gender or ethnic group, which contradicted cultural norms. Phobias and personality traits sometimes carried over from a previous life. For instance, a child who remembered drowning might have an extreme fear of water. This work showed that reincarnation-like memories weren't exclusive to cultures that already believed in the concept. Even in societies where reincarnation was not a common belief, cases still emerged, suggesting a deeper psychological or biological phenomenon at play. Reincarnation and Biology, a contribution to the etiology of birthmarks and birth defects, 1997. The most shocking evidence yet? In this massive 2-volume, 2,268-page book, Stevenson presented some of the most compelling physical evidence for reincarnation, cases where birthmarks and birth defects appeared to correspond with injuries or wounds from a supposed past life. The research involved over 200 cases where children had birthmarks or deformities that matched fatal wounds of deceased individuals they claimed to have been. Medical records and autopsy reports confirming that the wounds of the deceased matched the children's birthmarks, cases where birth defects had no genetic explanation but aligned with injuries from the past life narrative. Example: case: a Burmese child claimed to have been a Japanese soldier killed in World War II. He had severe birth defects on his legs, which mirrored a war injury described by a local elder who had seen the soldier die. This book introduced the idea that past life trauma could physically manifest in a new body. It raised profound questions about how memories, or even wounds, could be transferred across lifetimes. Where Reincarnation and Biology Intersect, 1997, a condensed version for a wider audience. Because reincarnation and biology was highly technical and meant for researchers, Stevenson later released Where Reincarnation and Biology Intersect, a shorter and more accessible version of his findings. This book summarized some of the strongest cases, explaining how past life injuries might influence birthmarks, phobias, and personality traits. It was intended for a general audience, making his research more widely known outside of academia. European Cases of the Reincarnation Type, 2003, Reincarnation Outside of India and Asia. One of the biggest criticisms of Stevenson's work was that reincarnation cases were mostly found in cultures that already believed in the concept. This book responded to that criticism by focusing on cases from Europe, particularly in places like Iceland, the UK, and the Netherlands. It proved that past life memories weren't limited to Hindu or Buddhist cultures. Cases emerged even in Christian societies, where reincarnation was not a common belief. The deeper implications of Ian Stevenson's work. Ian Stevenson's research did more than just suggest reincarnation as a possibility. It opened up profound questions about consciousness, memory, and the nature of human identity. If even a fraction of his cases were genuine, it would mean that our current understanding of life and death is incomplete. Consciousness beyond the brain? One of the most controversial implications of Stevenson's work is that consciousness might exist independently of the brain. If memories, personality traits, and even physical characteristics can carry over from one life to another, this challenges the mainstream scientific view that consciousness is purely a byproduct of neural activity. Could consciousness persist beyond death and transfer into a new body? Does the brain act as a receiver rather than a producer of consciousness? Some researchers have drawn connections between Stevenson's work and near-death experiences, NDEs, where people report awareness even when their brains are clinically non-functional. Karma and psychological patterns. Many of the cases Stevenson investigated revealed patterns of unresolved trauma from previous lives. He found that children who recalled violent deaths often showed lingering phobias or emotional disturbances connected to those deaths. A child who remembered drowning might fear water. Someone who recalled a violent murder might be anxious or hypervigilant. Individuals who remembered being persecuted for their beliefs often had strong convictions or aversions to authority. This raises the question: could reincarnation explain certain unexplained fears, compulsions, or even talents? Could events from a previous life leave an imprint on the next? The role of birthmarks and physical traits. Stevenson's research into birthmarks and birth defects is perhaps the most unsettling part of his findings. If physical traits can be influenced by past life trauma, this suggests some form of non-genetic memory transfer. This idea aligns with emerging research in epigenetics, which suggests that trauma and experiences can alter gene expression across generations. But Stevenson's findings went further, suggesting that these imprints can jump from one body to another, independent of genetic lineage. The ethical and social implications. If reincarnation is real, it raises many ethical and philosophical questions. What does it mean for justice? If someone commits a crime in one life but is reborn as an innocent child, should their soul still bear responsibility? Do we choose our rebirths? Some spiritual traditions suggest that souls select their next lives based on unfinished lessons. Stevenson's research did not confirm this, but many cases showed continuity in personal struggles. What happens between lives? His research did not provide definitive answers, but many children reported a waiting period before being born again. Reincarnation and religion. Stevenson was careful not to associate his findings with any particular religious belief. However, his work naturally intersected with the teachings of Hinduism, Buddhism, and even certain mystical branches of Christianity and Islam. He discovered that past life recall was not limited to cultures that believed in reincarnation. Even in societies where the idea was not widely accepted, children still reported past life memories, sometimes shocking their parents and communities. Stevenson's later years and legacy. In the final years of his life, Ian Stevenson continued his research at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, an academic institution dedicated to the scientific study of paranormal phenomena. Though he never claimed to have definitive proof of reincarnation, he left behind an enormous body of evidence that continues to challenge conventional scientific thinking. His research inspired later scholars, including Dr. Jim Tucker, who continues investigating children's past life memories today. Stevenson remained humble and cautious until his death in 2007, avoiding sensationalism and emphasizing rigorous scientific inquiry over belief. His work is still studied today, and many consider it the most serious and credible research ever conducted on reincarnation. What if he was right? Ian Stevenson's work forces us to ask questions that go beyond science, questions about the nature of self, identity, and the possibility of life beyond death. Could we all have lived before? Are our fears, talents, and even our wounds echoes of past experiences? And if so, what does that mean for the way we live our lives now? Even skeptics agree that Stevenson's cases are difficult to dismiss outright. Whether his findings will one day be fully accepted by mainstream science remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: he opened a door to one of the greatest mysteries of human existence. What do you think? Could Ian Stevenson have found evidence of reincarnation? Or is there another explanation?
Subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.